Welcome to another edition of Job Board Secrets here on YouTube, and now sponsored by Jobico as well. This is where we cover the business of job boards, guys. Everything from talking to job board owners to the news of the day and whatever's happening in the market overall. So, hey, if you're running a job board, time kills deals and time kills candidate experience. So today we're talking about how to force Google to index your jobs the exact second they go live. I got my guest today is Nick Leroy. He's the owner of two niche job boards, SEOjobs.com and PPCjobs.com. And Nick, welcome. You wrote a piece about Google for Jobs. We'll get to that. But first, I want to know how's business with your sites these days?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, especially for having me at the program. I would say my business is a little bit impacted for non-traditional job issues. We all are aware of AI and how it's impacting writers' careers, a lot of creatives, but it's also impacting both paid media and SEO roles. So I am still growing year over year, but not nearly at the clip that I had been. And I
Hmm.
believe that's simply due to the lack of total jobs available. But overall, from what I can control, good things.
Yeah. There's a quick look at your site here, SEOjobs.com. And you got the little tabs going for PPC jobs there. And SEO for Lunch, that's where that's your newsletter, I guess.
Yep, that's my newsletter. That's where I wrote about this indexing API that we'll talk more about.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. But before we start there, how much traffic do you get from Google for Jobs? Do you know that percentage or number or anything?
From Google Jobs, it's
Yeah.
not a ton, but I will admit, again, with SEO, we all know the strategies, the insights, and what we're trying to achieve, which is the rankings. So SEO is actually not a huge priority for my site. I know that sounds super weird, but all that to be said, it's a very small percent, and I would say 3 or 4%.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am stuck in this issue that I wrote about. So it could be a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. And how many jobs are we talking about here that you have on your sites? A
Yeah,
couple
on
thousand
SEO
or
jobs, yeah, it's a couple thousand.
okay. Yeah.
I think PPC jobs is like 6,500 and SEO jobs it bounces between 500 and 1,000.
Yeah. Now, before we get to the article, there are two ways to get indexed by Google for Jobs. Can you run us through those real quick and just kind of break it down
Yeah,
briefly?
absolutely. So there is traditional Google listings. We'll just, for the sake of simplicity, call it the 10 blue links. That is when Google essentially crawls the internet, including your job board, makes mention of an individual listing, and then includes it in their standard index. The second, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is Google has an API that allows you to essentially connect your individual job listings directly to Google's index. The reason that they do that is because job listings are so time sensitive, it does not help anybody to click in Google on a job if it's already been removed from your site.
Yeah.
So there's a way to be able to do that, but those are the two primary ways.
Yeah. Yeah. That latency has always been an issue with anybody who scrapes jobs, essentially, right? It's kind of a time-honored tradition, pain point
Absolutely.
there. Okay, let me just read some of this here. So, I wanted Google's indexing AI to be the cheat code for job boards. The equation was simply new job goes live, push it to Google. Job gets updated, notify Google. Job expires, tell Google to drop it. For any job board owner, that sounds incredible, especially considering job postings are not evergreen assets. They're short-lived, high churn pages that need to be discovered and removed quickly. If Google is slow to crawl a URL, the opportunity may already be gone by the time the page gets indexed here. So that was your assumption, you said. So walk me through this rabbit hole here of what happened. You just started to do this.
Yeah, so I'll be clear. I don't think Google is intentionally being, misleading, but I don't think they are highlighting the broader issue. And the issue that we'll be talking at hand is when you get access to this job API, which is as simple as going into Google Cloud and just requesting access. You'll be sent an API. Your initial quota is 200 requests per day. That includes both the publish requests, modify requests, and the delete requests. So you can see how if you have high inventory, that it hits those credits pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But so again, Chris, before I go into the deeper part of the story, the broader issue is we get 200 job credits. As I mentioned, we go through them very quickly, but we run into a bigger issue.
Now, is those credit, that's 200. Is that 200 jobs talking about?
Correct.
It is. Okay.
But it could be more than that, meaning if you have a job go in the morning, but then the job expires, then you send a second request to Google. So all I'm saying is 200 credits in theory means 200 submissions, but it can be the same 200, submissions across, 50 jobs. If they all went live, there was an update at some point in time, and they
Gotcha.
took it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, another aspect of because I have a couple sites as well, and the one thing I always see is that here's a question for you. It's more of a general question, but why are not all your jobs always indexed? I think it's because of duplication, I'm assuming, but what is your definition of that? Why a lot of your jobs are not getting indexed, on a
Yeah.
site?
So it's not a clear one line answer. But what I can do is say that job boards have an asterisk right next to it when it comes to, SEO best practices. Like you said, duplicate content is normally an issue. Non-optimized metadata is always an issue. Internal linking across your site. Those are all components that are critical for your SEO. So the other part about that duplication, though, is jobs. Google knows that jobs are intentionally duplicative. They know that they go in and out so quickly, and that's why they built the API. So basically, you are not held to the same standards as traditional search.
Yeah,
Where, like you said, if you have an article you wrote on your site and then you publish it on your all your clients, at best, only you should get that, traffic, and at worst, one of your, clients could outrank you.
yeah. I get those messages from the API with like you're missing metadata, like with the stupid street address. Like no job has a street address. So why
Yep.
is Google like, are they really penalizing me for, or I just ignore it? But
No, and
um,
that's in that situation, you're fine. But so what he's referring to is the schema markup.
yeah,
In conjunction with the API, a requirement is that the schema markup is complete and quote unquote passing. And what we mean is, and Chris is bringing it up, there are certain elements that are critical. So like if you don't have the title, location, type of job, etc., then you are going to get an error response. Your JSON, which is that schema, will not validate. So what I would do is, like you said, you're ignoring it because that's an optional parameter. And I'm assuming that you're seeing these invalidations or warnings in your Search Console account.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So again, what I would do is I don't have it offhand, and Chris, maybe you have a post about it, but there are definitive rules of if you're going to use the job markup, it needs to meet these requirements, and these ones are optional to enhance it. So if you're breaking the minimum, there's a chance that Google could ignore it. If you are missing an optional, we don't know 100% because Google is proprietary, but they could ignore you. But it's very likely that the more you fill it out, the more attention you're going to get from Google.
okay. So you say the APA is not useless, but it's worse than you think, I guess.
Yep. So
Um,
I started going down that rabbit hole a little bit. So I mentioned the API is a blessing to job boards because, again, I kind of talked about how Google crawls or discovers our jobs and the issues with them being in and out of the site so quickly. And that's not how the traditional Google index works. So the API, as mentioned previously, is a way to talk directly with Google. Now, we talked about also a new API registration gives you 200 credits or responses. Now, this is where I mentioned Google maybe not intentionally being manipulative or trying to cause trouble,
Hmm.
but they're certainly not clarifying. Those 200 responses are actually so they come back as 200. If you are tracking them, you have a tool, or you even read the raw JSON, which I know many people here will not want to do. Google tells you. It literally says like 200 status. That means Google requ or received your request. So you sent them the new job. They give you a 200 status. This is what people think is success. But what this status is actually telling you is 200, we received your request only. It does not tell you, the 200 does not mean it processed it or that it verified. Like it's not a validation of your job being accepted. And that is the fine legal print. So those 200 statuses are actually going to a Google sandbox. And what I mean for people that aren't familiar with that, it's basically their back end, in which it has no public face, kind of like a staging environment type deal.
Hmm.
So you're sending all your requests, it's their playground, their staging environment, and then that's it. But Google Cloud, where you register the API, tells you 200 credits consumed without errors or with errors. It does not tell you this cruel reality of you came to that test area, made the submissions, but there's a whole nother section of when the submission goes through, it also goes to Google's actual indexing process. So all that to be saying, they literally are allowing you to test their API. It's not an immediate because you got 200, quota, you
Yeah.
now have an access. You're accessing this issue is what I'm saying. You're not going to get indexed.
Okay. Y-
Apologies, a little bit of a rant there.
yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, like, I remember last year I got an email from, I think it was Search Console, that one of my jobs had kind of gone viral. They got like a ton of clicks. This is where like Google tricks you, I think, as well. Here's another example of tricking that you can get tricked, right? It said I had like, I don't know, 10,000 clicks on this job. Let's just pick a number. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I looked at my stats. My stats were pretty normal for that period. So as I look into it, it's not, it was 10,000 clicks, but it was 10,000 clicks that happened on Google for jobs, not my site. My job just happened to be at the top of the list.
Yep.
And they got all these essentially views,
It's impressions.
impressions. Yes. I'm like, okay, well, why are you calling it clicks? Like they got me
Yeah,
excited. It's like, I got all this traffic or something like that.
and I think that is what we all are seeing, regardless if it's a job site or
Yeah.
just a website you own, is with the AI overviews. That's basically Google's AI response to your question or query.
Yep.
We're not getting that much clicks to the site, but Google will still tell you you've become even more visible because you might be mentioned in that answer, and they may link to you. They may not. So all I'm trying to say again with the trend of being lengthy here is we are definitely getting less than
Yeah.
what we used to, and Google wants to claw it all back.
Um, I mean, what tips do you have around this, Nick? Do you have any, advice for other job owners?
Yeah, so are we talking just kind of general SEO or going deeper into the API, like how to fix it?
I mean, is there a way to get more jobs indexed? Number
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there's
What'd you say
there's the
about that?
two divided plans, like you said. The first one is the API. We talked about the 200 issue. They actually will tell you, hey, you need to fill out this form. and then we will decide whether you're using it legitimately or not, and we'll approve it. And in that same analysis, they'll also consider increasing your quota if you can basically validate that you are, burning everything regularly.
Oh, interesting.
So the bigger issue, and we'll probably go full circle back to the article, but Google is not responding to those requests. So when I had registered some a couple years back, there was no sandbox. It worked how we all think it works now.
Hmm.
I got 200. I burned through those. Those pages were indexed in seconds. And then all of a sudden, for other clients, like I think it was earlier this year, so 7 months, I have talked to another gentleman that has access to about 100 sites, job boards,
Yeah.
as well as my two. And, we've ascertained that there have not been any Google approvals for over 7 months. And it's more
Interesting.
likely 12 to 16 months, which all that to be said says you're wasting your time with the API because they won't even authenticate your account, let alone give you more um, credit.
Interesting. Okay. You know, it really, hearing that, like, it begs the question, like, how much do they care about Google for Jobs? Like,
Mhm,
there was all that speculation a couple years ago about how they're going to offer, uh, paid boosts, in Google for Jobs,
mhm.
which I never believed. Um, and I actually wrote some post about this back then. I'm like, I don't know how much they care about job listings, to be honest with you. Um, they kind of came out hot and then they've kind of cooled off on it. Any updates, things like that since. So, I don't know. I mean, I can't guarantee what job's going to be here in, 5 years. I
Mhm.
mean, I wouldn't say that as a, as a statement, it just really, it's curious is what I'm saying, I
Yeah.
guess.
My theory is just a couple things that I don't think that Google doesn't care about jobs. I think because it's a transactional service that brings them to other spots, kind of like Google Flights, that has its own widget as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of viewed as like a sunk, you know, debt essentially. So I think they will stay. I think what they're doing is just reallocating the resources that used to make it bigger, make it better, consider the ads, and in addition to that, going through that queue of requests. Because we know ultimately the internet's huge, but us job board owners are a much smaller percent of that.
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah.
apologies. One last thing that is super critical. So I told you before, I don't think Google is intentionally trying to like cause drama,
Yeah.
but the SEO industry as a whole is all about drama. And one of the biggest debates is if you submit a non-job listing to Google through this API, will it index your page? Google's documentation says no, it must be a job listing or technically a live event with very
Hmm.
clear start and end. And the reality was all the job people that jumped through the hoops, they're using it the correct way. Now, everybody else, once they found out that any job works, they've been setting up the job API on every single site on the internet. So Google is just probably getting hammered. I would hate to see that inbox, but they're just going to be getting hammered with requests, and probably 95% of them are spammers. Because again, I intentionally mentioned how big the internet is, and then there's true job board operators.
They should charge for, our access to this. Like, that would stop the spammers right there.
Well, it won't
Um,
though. It will stop a level of it, but there will be
a level, yeah.
businesses like if I'm a Best Buy or a Target, I just have an open-ended credit card on that because anytime I'm not in the search results, I'm losing money.
Totally, yeah. I'm pulling up one of my sites here. We can take a look at it.
Yeah,
All right, this is hrtechjob.com. I think I have, like, I don't know, 600 jobs on there. I'm
yeah,
pulling in from various. I got 71 valid listings.
yep.
Um, feel free to comment on this. Just
Yeah. Chris, let's pause
uh,
for just 1 second. Do you
yep,
have the job listing API?
not the API. This is through the feed.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure. So
Mm,
when
yeah,
you say feed, you mean like the XML sitemap, correct?
XML sitemap. Yep.
Yep. I
Yeah,
just
we can
wanted to
see.
make sure
You can
for
see
people
here.
that
Let's
weren't
see.
familiar.
Yeah, here's the
Yep.
sitemap here. So I have 1,300 pages on there.
Yeah. So I'm more interested if you click into that, like that's where you start looking. I would say do a click and then up, sorry, go up to the top real quick. There's a C page indexing on your right.
Yeah.
Now this is your goal because this
Ah.
basically tells you why Google accepted it and didn't. So you click on the checkbox if you want to see the ones that are working. But down here is the real thing. So, for
Mm,
instance, half of my pages, if not more pages than I have on the site, show up in that soft 404. And what that is specific for job board, owners is the post expired. So
yeah.
you're not gonna keep, a shell of it. And no, you should not be keeping your expired jobs available to Google. So that's how Google's lumping those. And then the discovered, that basically means Google is aware of it, but they have not indexed it. But again, you can at least say, we're discovered, Google is aware of it. The
Okay.
next, sorry, just finish up real quick. The crawl not, currently not indexed is basically not only have they received it, they reviewed it, and this is their kind way of saying, we believe that you're a spam page. We're not going to allow you into the index.
Okay. Okay.
So that's
Duplicate
the big
Google
thing.
shows. Oh, look at, yeah, the duplicate is small though.
Yeah. I'd click on that
Uh,
because I'd be very interested. I suspect that it's either a duplicate listing or
yeah.
yeah.
So
So literally the first two right there, they're basically what they're doing is if those were jobs, like two jobs on your site at any one point in time,
yep.
that canonical choice, your rule probably says that it should be self-referential. And what Google is now saying is, nope, we know he's got two of the exact same jobs, so we're gonna put all the Google magic into only one version. So it can override you at
Yeah.
times.
Very good. Payment radar. Okay. So I mean, looking at this, I mean, what are your just initial impressions? Like,
This doesn't surprise me at
okay.
all. The discovered and crawled, I'd be curious what your trend is. So if you open that up real quick.
Covered and crawled.
Yep, just
Uh,
you can only do one at a time, but whichever one you want, it's going to be similar insights. Okay. So this is just telling you,
these are blog posts.
yep. And so basically, I'm guessing if the blog posts are generated with AI, Google is ignoring it because it's either not original or they think it's
See,
low.
like this post here is an original post.
Right.
And why is it
But
not? Why is that not
Google
being
doesn't
cited?
always, even though we're looking at things as a like one-off situation, like Google uses weird rules and assumptions based off of the whole. And what I mean by that is, let's say that is the only one that is legitimate, and the other ones are either copied, AI'd, or
Some of
whatever.
these are press release stuff, so I
Yep,
copied and pasted. Yep.
absolutely. So that's Google basically telling you we don't value this content. We don't think it's good enough.
Yep.
So if you can look at those, and like you said, copy paste a PR, like that fantastic use of a website, but Google's not going to index it because they have the original up
Yep.
and towards the front. Where I would be more concerned is when you start seeing, how to find job in HR tech. Like that, what that tells me is whatever value you're giving in this is not new and it's not
Yeah.
the first time
It's a
they saw
short
it.
post. Doesn't really. It's not a
Right.
very big post.
But yeah,
Uh,
so they'll look at it too, and it's like if this were AI driven, that's what everybody's trying to do right now. Not necessarily in job boards, but the broader internet
I do
is
rank
just,
for HR tech jobs though. Let me see. Mm. Yeah, number one.
yep. No, that's good. And
Yep.
you're above
I'm above
the
the Google
listing.
for jobs. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do with SEO jobs right now. So it's just like,
You're not there yet.
well, I am not, they don't have a listing see how they have the AI overview?
Okay.
SEO jobs is kind of built in within the like where would you find the best SEO roles?
Right.
But I want my
Yeah.
site to
Hey, you're
show.
under there. Yeah. Well, you're
Yeah.
number one, but you're under the AI and the
But that's
jobs.
interesting that I came up number one for you
Yeah.
because I have been like routinely under LinkedIn and Indeed from my IP. But that's
Um,
great. That makes me feel better.
yeah, totally. And yeah, there's no other, you're basically the only game in town as far as SEO jobs go. Me too, like for HR tech jobs.
Well, and that's
Like,
the point of niche job boards, right?
yeah, I mean, it's if you own that niche, then
Well, what's
get
interesting is when we talk about that API and how they're not responding, the competitive advantages of our competitors that have that API, it's going to make it almost a 100% dumb idea to get into that niche. Meaning if Chris were to have the API and you're like, I can do a HR tech job better because I have the plural. You set all that up and then it's just like I don't know. It's garbage. That's what I'm trying to
yeah,
say. Sorry.
all right.
It's just because, like I said, Google will auto-index most of the existing sites that it knows about. Yours wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah. Good stuff, Nick. Appreciate you coming on today to talk about this. It was fun to just dive in here and play with the Search Console and stuff and get your thoughts on this stuff. Any last words of advice out there
Uh,
for
I
the
think, do
audience?
you want to talk about the health check job index, the one on my site?
Oh yeah. Let me see here.
And so while he's typing that up, I'll give you just a quick overview. So as you can tell at this point, I was speaking very technical, and that was on purpose. I built a tool that will basically take the real statuses and the real answers to is my job being indexed? And I gave it to you in a little tool.
Right
Yep.
here.
So if you, yep, do that. And then it's going to be one more click because it's on SEO jobs.
Oh, okay. Let me go
So
back
if you
here.
go to SEO jobs, it's in the resources section on the very top,
Resources.
index testing.
Okay.
Yep. So here it is. So there are two options. Both of them are free. They just require different levels of work. On the very top, you'll see one, insert URL and run, this the Sandy check. And what that does is it just
Mm,
looks at is the page viewed as a job listing from Google's eyes? Are you using the correct schema markup for jobs? And that's about it. And the page is indexable. Now, this is where it gets really good. If you do this second report,
hmm
it requires you to authenticate with Google. So you all seen when you are on sites, register an account, and it says, "Do you want Google, Apple?" Or they're going to ask you for that, and then it's going to have access to your Search Console, which is going to give you that definitive answer. Then your API is linked through your Search Console. That is a requirement. And together they run an instance, like they submit that URL for you,
hmm
but with your own API key. So that's why that's big on the bottom. That's the thing where it says like paste service. So you do
Yep.
have to put your API in there. I do not see any of this. No information is stored. I have it literally on like daily delete. There's just never an instance where anything's worried. But when you do all of that, you will get a very detailed response, including the signal where Google says you are playing in a sandbox, not with like the Google index. Like they're very direct in their comments or the JSON responses, but not in real life.
Yeah.
So this helps. Again, I'm trying to undork SEO as a whole. I'm gonna try to undork this SEO for jobs. It's just like,
You would think Google would have made something like this, but it took an
yeah.
SEO guy to do it on his own. So I appreciate that, Nick.
Well, and that's half the problem is like then you're embedding it. Who knows what they see or not?
Yeah. Yep. Have you ever played with like changing a job title and then seeing if it appears the next day? With duplicate
Because
maybe?
because that content isn't long-term content, I don't prioritize it. I have a fairly like researched title tag rule. for all my jobs. And, that's just insights from my 15 plus year career doing SEO, plus, things that I'm just seeing competitors do. We all see that Google is now prioritizing category pages that say, 45 HR tech jobs, and that's just
Oh,
where,
okay.
that's where that would change. But I would rather create a new resource or a new newsletter personally.
Gotcha. Very cool. Good stuff, Nick. We'll put a link in the tool for everybody. And thanks for stopping by today. Definitely come back when you got something else to show us.
Will do. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate the invite.
All right, Nick. Have a good day. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time on JobBoardSecrets.com.